Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage YouTube channel. Today I am making a video as a sort of continuation of my last video on this machine, where I was talking to you about how I was rebuilding a small part, but an important part, of my sewing machine case tray. The tray, of course, being the platform that this machine sits on. If you will recall, and I suggest going back and looking at that video, one of the things I was doing was I had gone in and had replaced a missing corner support. If you know anything about furniture construction, you know that they will often use wooden blocks in the corners. And this is actually, yes, just making sure I was in my corner here. Yes, and so this is a sort of a triangular shaped piece of wood, and it has several purposes. It reinforces the structural integrity of the tray. Remember, this machine's heavy, and it also elevates the front of the machine bed. Now, in some of the sewing machine cases, you will sometimes see supports in all four corners. On this particular one, the back section of the bed of the machine over here, it's simply supported by the hinge pins, and they do fine. And so the weight is resting on the base of this cutout here, so it's not an issue. But wanted to show you what I was planning to do with the shimming, because remember, if you if you followed that last video and you did it and you thought, oh my gosh, well, what happens when you put in the dowel like I showed you, and you think, oh great, I was listening to this Vintage Sewing Machine Garage dude, he told me to do this and I still don't have my machine level. Well, that's normal, because whenever you're shimming anything, some of you may have used shims in, if you do any kind of carpentry, or maybe you're just trying to adjust a door or window sash or something. When you shim something, you really need to set it up in such a way that you can add a little bit at a time until you get it where you want it. Okay, so let's first take a look, and I'll show you. You say, well, what is the goal? What exactly do we want? We obviously need the level of the machine bed to become. You'll always hear all sorts of sounds. You never know what this mechanic is going to drop. But anyway, when you're trying to figure out what you need your machine bed to do in terms of level, it's level, you want to make sure that you're going to be able to slide fabric over it. And right now, I'm being very careful here because I'm not going to scratch my machine. If this little straight flat piece, straight edge here, if it's doing this and it can't do this when it's sitting on the bed, that tells you something. You don't want to have this pulling on you when you're trying to feed fabric. Sewing on a machine in a case is not, it's not as smooth and flat as a table anyway. So what am I going to use as a reference? I'm simply going to use what I see in the back. Why? Because I believe that the level of this bed in this case has never changed in the back, because the hinge pins have not been removed, and they've been sitting there since 1952 or so. I'll have to go back and date this machine when I get it ready. In any case, what am I looking at? About, I'd say about 1/8 of an inch or so. Okay, so you don't have to make the front the same height, but you've got to get the front at least level. And I don't have a problem with getting the front to be 1/8 of an inch. That's fine, because again, it's going to be easier to take your fabric like this than trying to get over this edge here, this ridge, if you will. So we have different things we can use. We have felt pads. I've got some cork pads of different sizes and different thickness levels. And this is kind of a nice thing to have, because when you're taking these items, now if I take one of these pads and I use it to gauge how much I need, you might say, hey, look at this. This is nice and level, right? Well, no, not necessarily. Both felt and cork are designed to compress somewhat. Okay, they're strong, but they will compress. And that's not a negative, it's just a thing. And so what looks level here, when I put the weight of the machine on it, I'm going to need more than meets the eye. The other thing to note is that just because this the front is not level, not where it should be, does not mean that the left and the right are the same. Because remember, the original corner block, which is still here, it had a rubber pad, but that rubber pad has been holding its part of the bargain up since 1950 something, and it's tired, right? It's just sort of sunk down. So I know that I'm going to need to adjust both of these in terms of getting the front of my machine level. And the real question will then become, oh, okay, well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to cut it on the right, because on the right, building up my, speaking of shimming, I'm actually shimming my machine here so that when I tilt it back, it doesn't go rolling like a bowling ball. I also am going to be putting, again, I propped up, I think I used a tool before, and now I've just got this giant, this is an old flannel sheet that makes a wonderful polishing cloth. The point about this is, and test this, I'm going to, if it moves forward, it's not going to come crashing onto my hand or your hand. Not a good thing. So make sure you are in a safe place, unless you have a very patient person in your home who's willing to hold it for you. Now, let's see here. So if you look, I'm gonna come over here and show you, the area that I'm looking at that I need to cut a shim is only, it's like a sliver, it's like a crescent shape. Whereas on the left, I need something that is going to fit, and I don't want it to be bigger or much bigger than my dowel. My dowel is about 5/8 inch square. Now, in the last video, I had put my stack of cork pads, which it wasn't this high. These pads are all together for a different purpose. So cork is a fantastic pad material, and it would make a good one for this, but the size is a little small. So I was checking on it today, after I'd put that in there, and what I noticed is, in order for the cork, for the pad, I want it to be stable, and when the machine bed comes down, it catches it right there and sort of tugs on it, and I don't think that's going to hold up over time. So I want a larger pad on my dowel, and I want that pad to basically be enough to hold the machine, because remember, the machine it's going to curve on this corner, right? It's not perfectly square. The corners of a Singer machine from this era, there's a curve here. And those of you who know the vintage Singers know this from the shape of the openings in tables and trays. So I am going, because of the thickness that I need here, I am going to use 2 felt pads. Now that looks like a lot, right? You might say, well, gosh, that sure is a lot. I haven't glued these in yet, but you might think it's too much. What happens when I lower the machine? Let's see if I'm right about that. Okay, now, look at that. I've actually gotten the left side is now, well, it's actually about flush with the edge. I may even need a little bit more. Now, another reason to check this, especially on the left, is, remember, one of the reasons we're doing this, other than for, getting fabric in and out without binding, is your bobbin plate. Remember, when I showed it last time, the bobbin plate wouldn't move. And it wasn't the plate as the issue, it was the fact that it was being blocked by the edge of the carry case because the machine was sitting too low in it. That's not a problem now, although it's still, it moves, but I don't have a lot of wiggle room there. So because things compress, felt and cork compress over time, I have decided that I am going to, I believe what I'd like to do is I'm going to put these here, but but I am actually going to add another piece. I've got a piece of cork and a large piece here, and it is going to go, um, here. And I'm going to need to use glue because the adhesive, the adhesive they put on these things, you use it. If anything sticks to it after a while, it loses its punch. So I'm going to take my Elmer's Pro Bond Maximum Ultra, whatever the heck the stuff's called, fancy wood glue, real fancy. And I'm just going to, put a dollop on the top, and it'll spread out when I get my little cork pad here. And in this case, I'm just making sure that it is pushed all the way into the corner. And there's a little bit of overlap on my dowel, but it may be like, I don't know, a 1/16 of an inch. It's not bad. You may not be able to get it perfect, but sometimes you don't have to have it perfect. You hardly ever hear me say that, I know. But okay, all right, everybody. So what are we doing next? We're going to need to add, and before I glue these, let's just go back, because again, they're going to compress, but I want to know what the level is going to look like before I commit to it. Oh yeah, now I can tell, right? I've got this 1/8 of an inch on the left side is just like that in the back, and a little bit, not quite as much in the front, but the front is high enough that if you're feeding, your finger or this, it's bumping into the edge of the machine. So that's fine. And again, later on, what if these pieces start to keep compressing? You can always go back and add more. So that's the interesting thing of when you shim something. All right, let's take a look over here on the right. All righty, let's get our block back under the machine, because Murphy's Law, you know how that's going to go, and you don't want to hear me say ouch. I don't want to hear me say ouch. Okay, so now on this side, how much do we need here? Because I don't have a lot of room. There's a couple of things I could do. I can chisel out and take out this old rubber, which is an option. I wonder, because if I only cut a sliver, a crescent-shaped sliver of something like this, or the felt, I've only got a really small area here to work with, and I don't want the edge of the machine catching it and pulling it off. So that may be a case of needing, I may just need to remove the old one I'm not going to remove the block, I'm just going to remove the, I think I'm going to remove just the old rubber piece here, because it's originally, like I said, it was more impressive, but again, it served well for 70 years. Do I have that right? And it should not be difficult to pull out, right? You look at what I'm doing here. I'm just taking a flathead screwdriver and just coming along the edge there. Sometimes when you're dealing with old rubber feet on a machine, they may have some of them may have screws in them. Oh, this one did. How about that? Look at that. It had a hole in it because it was screwed in place. They didn't just rely on glue back those days. Oh no. I know I geek out on the quality of these machines, even down to the hardware and the screws. But it's not an exaggeration. Just always amazes me what. I want to make sure I don't have any rubber crumbles to interfere with adhesion. So if you have any doubt at all, you can take a lint brush, or I'm just going to take, I had a cotton swab nearby. I usually do. So, all right. So what do we got here? There's a metal piece there, which is actually useful. It can help me reinforce this. So what I may do, I have to decide how much I want to add. Now, when I'm doing this, keep in mind that, remember what I said, just because the left side needed, a layer of cork pad and 2 pieces of felt doesn't mean the right does, because the right is different. So I'm just going to do what I did before. I'm going to do a little test of its height before I go crazy and start gluing stuff here. I'd rather do it that way. All right, let's pull out my little Swallow buffing cloth there, and let's see what happens. Now, yes. So basically, the left side of the front corner was lower than the right. So the right is, it's actually a little bit, it's actually a little bit higher than the left. Maybe this is too. Maybe it's just the felt is too thick. What does that leave me with? It leaves me with cork. Now I haven't put a hole in the cork yet or anything, but let's just see what that does. Interesting. Well, getting closer. I think if I can get one more cork pad, I may have it, folks. It may be good enough because I can tell, it's just barely above the surface of the edge of the it's obviously not as high on the right as on the left, and I'd like you to get it as close as possible. We're not gonna, we're not taking laser measurements here, but we want it to be as even as possible. Not necessarily for aesthetics, although it could be for that, just mainly because we don't want this to sink. So let's see what we have at our disposal. Okay, I have decided for this area right here, I'm going to take one of my smaller cork pads because I don't need anything as thick as my my felt. And then I'm going to put another one over here. And I'm going to basically tear one of these little pads in two. And since I'm very curious as to how that's going to work out. Since I've not done it before, I want to get sort of a half of one because I need it to go in the back here and make sure that it will sit flat on the other side of this big piece of metal. And again, what am I doing? Why am I playing with this? I'm basically just shimming. That's the goal. And now I've used these smaller pads because they are thinner. They're not as thick, but they are going to be the foundation for the larger one. Now, before I go any farther, I need to cut, and I'm going to use my X-Acto blade. You can use whatever you wish. However, if you have never used an X-Acto blade, I have. I had to use one in university years ago, and I have never forgotten it because these are blades, and I ended up cutting myself. I hope you do not, so be extra careful. You may have something else to use. But basically, I'm cutting off the excess, right? Because anything that hangs over the edge here, I really don't want it to pull the whole edifice down. So that's what I'm attempting to do. It's not for aesthetics so much as let's just make sure it doesn't create any problems for us. We really don't want those. All right. Maybe try a different one here that might be a little sharper. So instead of using my finger, I'm going to use this. Oh, maybe I'm using my brain because I'd rather use this. I'm holding the X-Acto blade, sort of flat against the corner piece there, the piece of wood. And just cutting it off. Again, it's not very clean, but I'm not as worried. Yeah, this is a sharper blade. Not so much worried about making it pretty as making sure that it's actually going to do what I want it to do. Nothing wrong with how it looks. It looks fine. It is, what's the old saying? Form follows function. It really needs to here. All right, so let's get my X-Actos out of my way. I don't want them near me anymore. And now I have my larger piece. And of course, in the center is that piece of steel. So let's see if now if this piece wants to sit there. So I'm going to, before I glue anything, I'm going to check it, see if it's going to do what I want it to do. And then I'm going to pull the machine down and let's see what it does to the leveling. Oh yeah, that is exactly what I was hoping for. I didn't know it was going to turn out this way. So when you're making a video for your YouTube channel, as all of you know, I don't like to make these videos super edited and polished because I really want you to see me figure things out as I go. Sometimes some of these procedures in these videos I've done many times and I can actually, do them pretty efficiently. So let's come over here. Yep, we have the edge, and again, I'm being very gentle. Don't worry, I'm not scratching the edge. And as I come over here, yeah, I'm getting, these are a lot more uniform now. I'm sure we could probably get, 1/64 of an inch more, but I'm actually pleased with that. So now that I'm pretty sure that I like what I have here, all that's left for me to do is to get some wood glue on here. Just get the camera position for you all so you can see what I'm up to here. All right, so I'm going to take this piece back off. Now remember, there's adhesive underneath these pieces, but you know what? These pieces the adhesive is not that strong. That's just the adhesive that came on them. And so I'm actually going to go ahead and, well, that one has good adhesive. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of this wood glue right on top of here. And it's going to be fine. It won't hit the machine because I've got that bigger piece to put on there, right? So I just want to make sure that I'm getting, when I'm done with this, I'd like it to stay put, okay? And I'm not worried about the glue. The glue won't dry this color. It should dry pretty clear. Now, and, oh, I don't know, for good measure, I can come over here and maybe mop up over here on the side if I want. And then, actually, what I might do is put some glue on the edge of my cotton swab. Is there anything I have yet to not be able to do with a cotton swab? And I'm putting some of it back here for the little piece in the back. Now, what do I want to do? I'm going to take, actually, instead of putting glue on the back of the large pad that's about to be put here, I'm gonna get the glue on here with my cotton swab, because I know where the glue needs to be. And now it is time to take my larger pad. Again, I've already measured for this. And I could have, if I didn't have these smaller cork pads underneath, I would have, cut a hole in the center here to get around that metal piece. But right now, it's actually perfectly flat because I filled in that lower section. Now, the only thing left to do is come back over to the left side. And get these pieces glued. My cork is on there beautifully, that's fine. So what am I going to do here? I definitely need glue here because the adhesive on a felt pad is not going to stick to other felt very well. Now this one has not been stuck to anything before. And it is going to be put onto a cork. The cork pad that I installed, those of you who have long fingernails will appreciate being able to do this better than I can. Like peeling off a cheap price tag. Ugh. Here we go. All right, so this has adhesive, and let me see what it does. Does it want to stay on there? It may stick on the cork fine. I know it won't stick on the fibers. Yeah, whoops. Well, it stuck, but not great. But I think that's because, oh, I see. my glue underneath the cork has not solidified, but the felt, it's actually doing just fine on top of the cork. So let's get our cork and our felt sandwich. Looks like an ice cream sandwich. Let's put it on there, and let's obviously I've got to let that glue dry. And what's left? I think I just have this one felt pad left. And again, I'm going to put more of my glue here. Now the glue should glue these two felt pads together, and that's my goal, so that everything is going to stay put when the glue is nice and dry. And I'll come back and test it, you know, obviously before I declare this machine ready for a debut, because I don't like to do debuts until the machine's ready. All right, let's see what we've got, everyone. Let's get the cam positioned. And when you lower your machine after you have set up all these felt shim glued sandwiches like I've shown you, come down gentle, because remember, these things are glued but they haven't cured yet. So let's come down nice and easy. Watch your fingers. All right, I'm letting it down nice and gentle. And oh yeah, I'm very happy with what I see here. All right, so this is going to dry. I'm going to let it dry for 48 hours or so. You could probably do it in 24, but you know, why not give it a little more time? And then we'll come back and we'll check it out. And that is how I choose to make an old carry case work again. Again, remember I've sanitized it. That has worked quite well in this case. The hydrogen peroxide might not always work for everything, that 3% solution, but it worked beautifully here. You may need other more stronger treatments to get rid of your mold. But we're going to now that we have our machine nice and level, and our plate's happy, and whoever's going to sew in this is going to be happy. They're not going to be catching the edge here. And what did it cost? Some felt pads and a dowel from the department hardware store, along with the Super Duper Max glue. So I hope that this was helpful, everyone. Maybe you've had something like this. And by the way, this technique is good for other brands. You know, a lot of the Japanese sewing machines came in carry cases standard. So yeah, this same technique should work for many of those. And anyway, if you've had this situation before or ever wondered, I never like to throw a case away. In fact, I've rebuilt them before because, you know, if they're sized to the machine, why not try to save them? They're obviously strong. They just need some TLC. So thank you all for watching and supporting this channel. And if you found this valuable or anything else on this channel valuable, please just feel free to click on the tags. There are little links there for Buy Me a Coffee. And you can donate to the channel at any level you wish. And it will help support my efforts at finding more machines like this forlorn and forgotten Singer 99K, so that we can get them restored, get them into the hands of people who, like many of you, are sewers. And we can share more. We can share more of the techniques. But I need old machines to do it, and need your support. And I'm just so grateful that all of you have been revisiting the channel as we've relaunched it. And we will see you